I'm Joe Coco, and the owner-manager of Coco Enterprises. We are a financial planning and investment advisory firm. One of the things I do for fun is that I like to teach classes, and that's what this classroom is for. I'm glad you're all able to come. Tonight we're going to discuss the topic of cash flow planning, how to tell your money what to do instead of wondering where it went. For some reason, finance is something that some people either get it, and many times they have difficulty getting it. But there are some skills that we can pick up, and if we implement them, what we'll find is that our money will go farther, and we'll actually control the money in such a way that we'll actually start meeting some of our financial goals. Now, the first thing you need to do when it comes to finance is you have to figure out where you are in terms of financial planning. And we like to use the Wealth Builders milestones to determine that. So when folks come in the office and I meet them for the very first time, I say, okay, where are we? If they have lots and lots of debt, consumer debt per se, I'll just say our first order of business is to come up with $1,000 saved up in cash someplace. And the way you come up with cash is that you go through your house, and if it's not a family member, you sell it. And you come up with the cash, and you put that money in a safe place in the savings account, Parkside Credit Union. And then we start working on paying off our consumer debts. And the way you pay off your consumer debts is you either A, sell everything and come up with the cash in order to do that. But at some point, you've sold all that stuff off. The next thing you do is you work extra hours, or you go and you ask your boss for a pay raise, or you figure out ways to increase your cash flow. Because only the two ways you can come up with extra cash is you sell the stuff that you own, or you produce more income. Once you get all your consumer debts paid off, then with the cash flow that you now have, which is hopefully more positive, is you start saving 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses in cash. And at the end, I'll show you where you can find this particular template. It's on our website. So you don't need to write all this down, because we'll make it available to you. Once you save 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses in cash, for most people, we'll say start saving for a down payment for a house. And one of the best ways to do that for most people is Roth IRAs. Roth IRAs are kind of unique in the fact that you can take the funds out of a Roth IRA up to your contributions into it, and you won't have to pay any taxes or penalties, even if you take it out before age 59 and a half. So let's say that over the course of 5 years, if you were to put away $5,000 into your Roth IRA, every year for 5 years, you'd have $25,000 in your Roth. If it grows to $40,000 in that time frame, you can take out $25,000 with no penalties and no tax and use those funds for a down payment for a house. Secondly, once in a lifetime, you're able to take the growth out of the account without having to pay a penalty. Now you have to pay taxes on it. You can take $10,000 out. So in this scenario, you put in 25, it grew to 40, you could take $35,000 out and only pay taxes on 10. That's a pretty good tool for those folks who are saving money to pay for a house. Now, if you pay for a house, I can tell you from experience, when you buy a house, it sucks all the cash out of you. It's like a big vacuum. And then all of a sudden, for the next 6 to 8 months, you're running around going, oh my gosh, I don't have money for drapes or curtains or carpet or anything else. Do everything you possibly can to come up with a down payment for a house while you're leaving your 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses in cash untouched. Easier said than done, because everybody gets real excited about buying a house when they get to that window of opportunity. But if you do that, you're going to find that buying a house is going to be a lot less stressful.
Joe?
Yep.
Question. The 3 to 6 months, that's quite a time span difference. Depending on what your expenses are each month, that could be $9 grand. You know what I mean? So how do you know what's best? Do you have 3 or do you have 6?
A good rule of thumb is that if you have lots of good benefits from your employer, for example, they give you disability insurance and they pay for your health insurance, you could probably get by with 3 months. Folks who are in the military, people who work for the Forest Service, they usually have really good benefits. I go, 3 months is probably pretty good for you. But if you're a realtor and you make money with commissions, or if you work in a cyclical business where you might get laid off, you might want to have 6 months or even more.
Thank you.
Okay. Once you get your house paid, once you get your house and you have a mortgage and you know what that mortgage is going to be, so you know your housing expenses are going to be pretty similar for the next decades, start socking away up to 15% for retirement or saving for your kids' education.
For a paycheck?
Yes, yes. So every family is a little bit different. Now some families will put a real premium on paying for their kids to go to school. So in that case, maybe you put away 10% for your kids to go to college and 5% for yourself. Or you may be the exact opposite. You put 5% away for your kids and you talk to them about, all right, our responsibility as parents is this much. Your responsibility for being the kid is this much. We'll ask grandma and grandpa for some help. You'll get some scholarships. You'll do some work study. And you'll come up with a plan for paying for college. But this is the amount of money we're going to pay for you. But it's reasonable for families to put away 15% as a combination of the two. Now, over time, what you'll find is that as we become more productive, as we gain more experience, as we become more valuable to our employers over time, generally speaking, incomes grow. As the income grows, while you continue to put 15% of your paycheck away for retirement or paying for college for your kids, start making extra payments against your mortgage and try to get that mortgage paid off. Nobody says you have to take out a 30-year mortgage. You take out a 30-year mortgage, you can pay it off in 18. You can pay it off in 7. But the sooner you pay it off, all that cash flow that used to go to that mortgage payment now belongs to you. It's like getting a 40% paycheck in many people's cases. Once you get your house paid off, then you're in the financial position where you can start venturing into some of those great ideas that you've always had for your own small business. So maybe that's the point where you start saving money up to buy an excavator, or you buy photography equipment or video equipment. You try to go into business for yourself. You open up a bakery or those sorts of things. Or start putting the money away in investments or buy real estate. Consider buying a duplex or rentals in a college town or something like that.
When you talk about investments, are you saying that you would not engage somebody who does what you do until your house is paid off?
No,
Like you don't
no, you're doing that here. You could be doing that here.
Okay,
So, you're putting away money in a retirement plan or a college fund. That's what I do.
got it. Okay,
Okay.
pardon.
So this is one area where I can help people, but I can also help people at number 7 as well. Okay. Now at some point, and this is usually when people are in their late 50s, early 60s, they look around and they go, "You're right."
Hey.
And they say, "Gosh, I'm making some pretty good money just from my investment portfolio." At that point, you're in the enviable position. You say, do I want to keep working for money? Or do I want to just retire and live off of the income that my investment portfolio is producing? When you get to that point, you can start considering creating jobs and ministries. Because as you start to slow down, you can start hiring other people to do things for you. You can hire people to cut your grass. You can hire people to cater dinners for your family. And one of the neat things about when you get to that point is that you can actually build relationships by hiring them. But this is a great template to figure out where you are. I mean, are you at the point now where you need to at least get $1,000 saved up? Or do you already have money sitting in the bank and you're thinking about buying a house? This particular template kind of helps you figure out where you are, and then you can figure out where you want to be. Interesting thing about money is that money is fluid. Whoa. Oh, that was not good. In fact, they call money currency for a reason. It flows. And what you'll find is that for many folks, when they have money in their pocket and they have money in their purse, it starts building pressure. It starts building pressure. And it feels like it just has to come out. And I remember when my kids were little and they would get checks from grandma at Christmas. And everything's closed on Christmas, right? But they were so excited, they felt like they had to go to the imagination station in Whitefish and go spend it on something. There was all this pressure to spend their gift from grandma. Unfortunately, that doesn't affect little kids, it affects us all. Money is a wonderful slave, but it can be a horrible master. Unfortunately, though, most of us allow our money to push us around. We end up getting jobs that we need instead of jobs that we want in pursuit of money. In the marketplace, there are all these voices coming at us at the same time. Buy me, buy me, buy me, buy me. And sometimes it's overwhelming. You see the ads in the Wednesday paper, to shop for things that are on sale. Or your neighbor buys a new boat and you feel like you have to buy a boat in response. But if we don't get control of our money is going to end up controlling us. And that's not a very fun place to live. Like I said earlier, money builds pressure in our checkbooks, and we generally will spend it until it's all gone. Sometimes we'll keep spending even though there isn't any money. It's been better recently. When I first started teaching these classes in the early 2000s, it was easy credit. The banks were giving anybody money. There were home equity lines. It was easy to get a credit card. And man, the economy was just flush in cash. And unfortunately, lots and lots of people got into financial difficulties during that time frame. Well, after 2008, the regulatory agencies came in and kind of cleaned a lot of that up. And one of the benefits of that is that it's much more difficult for people to get in trouble with debt. But the fact is, it's still a problem for many folks. As a community and as a society, we got to retake control of our money. First place that most of us can do this is with the checkbook. I'm amazed at the number of people when I take a look at their checkbook. It is about as messed up as a soup sandwich. They don't put, entries, or when they take money out, they don't write it down. And then what happens is they're standing out at the checkout counter at Super One, and they're writing a check, or they use their debit card instead of a check, and there's no money in the account. And it's a complete surprise to them. But the thing is that when you actually manage your checkbook, you know exactly how much money you have in your account. And then in the days with, and I know you're getting rid of your smartphone at some point, but
It's on the computer though. You don't need a phone for that.
that's what I'm saying. People still don't track it on the computer. If you can't stop bouncing checks, close your checking account, go on a cash basis only. It is sloppy to be writing bad checks. And for those of you in small business, the last thing in the world you want to do, and we've got a couple of lenders here, we don't want your reputation to be sullied by you writing bad checks. If you use an ATM machine or a debit card, make sure you record your withdrawals in your check register. Any questions on the checkbook? All right, moving right along. The dreaded B word, budgeting. That's a four-letter word for some folks. A budget is a written monthly plan designated to tell your money what to do instead of wondering where it went. People hate them. Here's why. First of all, budgets can feel like a straitjacket. They're frustrating because they tell you the things you can't do. But really, that's just a paradigm, because you can switch it to make it say that a budget actually tells you what you can do. And if constructed in a healthy way, you take care of the things that are necessary, but you leave a little money for the things that you enjoy and make life meaningful. Number two, people don't like budgets because in the past, they've been used to abuse folks. Maybe you had a spouse, or you have a spouse, who says, you can't do that, it's not in the budget. You can't do that, it's not in the budget. Or you had parents who were that way. That they lived legalistically with a budget and they use it to oppress people instead of use it as a wise way of being a good steward of their finances. Number 3, budgets never work. Kind of like quitting smoking. I've done it 1,000 times, never works. Well, what we're going to show you is that the reason why they never work is because you quit too soon. Most of the pain of budgeting is going to take place in the first 90 days. If you get in the habit of doing it after 90 days, the odds of you actually adopting it as a lifestyle increase dramatically. And finally, we're afraid of what we will find out if we start the process. I'm kind of living in denial right now, and if I actually start doing this, I know that things are going to be a lot worse than they really are. Now, I've been helping people for almost a quarter century right now, and I'll tell you, it's a 50-50 proposition. Because half the times they come to my office and they think they're, oh my gosh, this is going to be horrible. And actually we start to take a look at their finances. You know what we find out? They're actually in really good shape. They just don't know it. But when you start managing your finances, you'll know exactly what your state of finance actually is. Another big reason why budgets don't work is because we generally record what we did right or wrong last month. Now, when I talk to folks and they say, well, I'm changing. After January 1st, my resolution is I'm going to start budgeting for the next year. And I'll ask them, I'll say, what does that mean? He says, well, I'm going to start tracking my expenses. Okay? You're tracking your expenses. So you go and you spend all your money, and then you're depressed because now you've recorded it for perpetuity, all the things that you spent your money on and you're broke. Okay? Just writing down and recording your expenses is not budgeting. Budgeting is proactively creating a system of how you're going to spend money in the next month or how you're going to spend it right now. It's not just a historical record. Another reason why budgets often don't work is we make them way too complicated. You know what the ironic thing about computers is? They're supposed to make our life simpler, but sometimes they don't. And there's all kinds of whiz-bang phone apps out there that purport that they're going to help you with your budgeting. And there's computer software out there that's supposed to help you doing it. But if you think about it, you're going to do your budgeting and you're going to do it on a daily basis. You're going to plan your cash flow. And you want to come home and do your budgeting. So you turn on the computer. How long does it take for your computer to boot up?
A few minutes.
2 minutes?
Yeah.
All right, so it takes 2 minutes to boot up. Then you have to get your mouse and you have to go to the software specifically for your budgeting. How long does that take? Another 15 seconds or so? So then you open it up and then you kind of scroll down to the place where you want to make your entries, your data entries, and then you put it in. So now you have 2-3 minutes invested in this, and you do this every day. Seriously, how many of you have the patience to do that? But what if you had a budget that was like old school on paper, on a clipboard, and you put it right next to your phone? And so when you came home at the end of the day, you check your phone messages and you basically do your financial accounting or bookkeeping for the day, and you're done. So when people ask me, what's a good software for budgeting? I go, I don't know. I don't teach people to use software. Now, I know there are people out there who will swear by it. You know, Mint.com on the phone and Microsoft Money in the past, people did that, or some of these other bookkeeping things. Hey, I'm telling you from experience, if it gets complicated in time, you'll grow weary of doing it. But if you keep it simple, you'll probably end up doing it. 3, one of the reasons why budgets don't work is you leave things out. And guess what? If you've never budgeted before and you're just getting started, you're going to. You're going to get slapped upside the head with an expense that you never saw coming. Either you didn't plan for a car repair, or you didn't plan to pay for the registration on your car in September, or if you own your house and you got to pay your property taxes, you forgot to set money aside for your property taxes. There's always something. And when you first start out, you're kind of winging it. You'll do the best you can, and if you get 80-85% of the way to perfection, great. But I'm telling you, from experience, you're going to be wrong in the beginning. You're going to leave things out. Next, one of the reasons they don't work is we don't actually do them. Now, there's a lot of people who are starters. You know, they'll get all excited and they, go down to Staples or, Office Max, and they'll buy the budget kits and they'll get the software, and they got to buy the new computer and the nice flat screen to go with it, and Bluetooth mouse. And they're really good at getting all the stuff to do it. But when it actually comes down to doing the budgeting process itself, they don't. Next, they don't work because we get discouraged and we quit. But as I said earlier, it's going to take about 3 months for you to get a good idea of exactly how much money you're spending. And it's going to take you about a full year to overcome the crises that are sure to pop up the first year you do it. Now, years ago, when Lynn and I decided to get on this particular program that I'm presenting tonight, we just started. And before that, our system was, and it was all me, is that had a system where I had 3 credit cards. I had a credit card that the billing cycle was the 1st to the 10th of the month. I had another credit card where the billing cycle was from the 10th to the 20th of the month. And the third billing cycle was between the 20th and the 30th of the month. And I put a little piece of tape on it and I said 1, 2, or 3 on those different credit cards. So when we would go to the store and buy things, I'd take a look at the calendar or look at my watch and say, all right, today is the 14th. I'm going to use credit card number 2. And then that way I could leave my money in my money market, my interest-bearing money market account back in those days, which was paying 3 or 4%, so I could float the credit card for 45 days before I actually had to make a payment. Well, what happens is that when you get into that paradigm is that you're always paying for things that you bought in the past. So trying to wean yourself from that system, in the first month, I had to figure out where I was going to come up with the money to pay for this month's of expenses while taking care of last month's of expenses. And it was really difficult the first few months because we tried to overcome that difficulty. Because when you start budgeting, and we're going to talk about this, you want to start socking away some money for home repairs. And you want to start socking some money away for automobile maintenance. And you want to be socking some money away for your vacation fund. So you have all this money going these different places, and in the beginning, I got to come up with the money to pay all those different positions and pay off last month's credit card bill. So for the first 2 months, it was kind of stressful in our family. Well, we were dutifully, for the first 2 months, we were putting money away into our car repair fund. We had family that came visiting, and some of the family members wanted to go fishing. So I decided to take them to Upper Stillwater Lake. Now, the only vehicle that we could fit everybody into, or to go, we had 8 people that wanted to go, was the family Astrovan. Well, the clearance on the Astrovan was like this compared to my truck, which was like this, right? But we couldn't get everybody in the truck, so we put them in the Astrovan. With all those people in there, it was riding real low. We ended up hitting a rock, the oil pan, $2,300 worth of damage. Okay? Well, we only had a few $100s in the car repair fund at that point, but we had some money that we had put inside the vacation fund, and we had some money put aside in the housing miscellaneous fund. So basically we robbed all of those envelopes, which we'll talk about here in a second, to come up to pay for that thing. It took us about a year for us to get back to our equilibrium again. But once we did, now everything's fully funded. At this point, it's just a matter of maintenance. But what I want you to understand is that if you do this, it's going to be difficult probably for the first year. Don't think otherwise. Okay. Now, why should you go through all this angst? Well, as mentioned earlier, money is a wonderful slave but a horrible master. And if you can't manage money when the money is actually managing you. 2, there is a point when you get this and you're in the groove, you actually start flourishing because you know exactly where your money is going each month. Now, you didn't really identify the anxiety before. It's kind of like back pain. A couple of years ago, it was like I started really feeling good where I didn't have pain, and I'm going, wow, this is pretty good. I don't have any back pain. Well, you kind of got used to the back pain. Well, it's kind of like budgeting. When you don't know where your money's going, you're experiencing this sort of anxiety. And when you start knowing where your money is going, you're going, I'm really feeling good. I can't put my finger on why. 3, when you have the money designated for different expenses, you can jump on opportunities in the past you might have missed. The fact of the matter is that when you have money, there are good deals out there. And when you have set aside money for good deals, you can jump on them. Case in point was, 12, 15 years ago. I get a call at the office, and Linda says, Joe, I'm down here at Lowe's, and they have the exact Persian rug I've been wanting for a long time. And it's on sale. Normally goes for $900. They got it on sale for $400. I said, okay. How much money do we have in the furniture fund? She says, we have $1,100. I said, go for it.
She liked you at that minute.
Yeah, every now and again, even a broken clock can be right twice in the same day. So, but my point is that we had been planning, unknowingly, for the Persian rug because we've been setting aside money every month for a while. And as it built up, when we saw the opportunity, we were able to jump on it, and it didn't throw our entire cash flow system into disarray. When you have a budget in place, you're going to spend less time crisis managing your money. Now, the first month you do it, it's going to take you a few hours probably to get everything worked out, particularly if you're married. In fact, when Lynn and I first did our first budget, it was one of those things where I was making good money, but it seemed like we just weren't moving forward financially. We just weren't saving, and I just frustrated that I'm going, gosh, I can't believe we're making this much money, and we're kind of just like standing still. So I went and I bought the Dave Ramsey kit and all that kind of stuff, and I started looking at Larry Burkett's stuff, and at the same time I had clients who were coming in who were surgeons or small business owners who were making a really good money, but they were kind of like me. They just weren't getting anywhere. So I took I studied all this stuff, and I came up with a system to teach my clients how to manage money, and I said, Linda, we should try this, and we'll do it for 3 months so I can tell people that I've done it, and I can explain to them how we're doing it. And she was like, oh, I don't want to do that, I don't want to do that. So let's just give me 90 days, and at the end of the 90 days, well, after the 90 days, she says, we should teach this to everybody. And we kind of had these classes, and for many years, we taught these classes on a monthly basis. The first meeting we had setting this thing up, though, we did it in a public place to ensure that we wouldn't fight. And remember the Kavanaugh's restaurant over in Kalispell Center Mall? There was a restaurant in there. So we had dinner there. It was on a Friday night. It was in the summertime because it was one of those late nights where the sun was shining until like 9:30 or 10. And they have a little fireplace and a sofa right there in the lobby. So we had dinner, and then we sat down in the lobby, and that's where we did our first budget. And oh my gosh, it was like a cat fight going back and forth. We just couldn't get to the point where we could balance the budget because, and we'll show you in an exercise we get later here, the same thing. But it went back and forth, but then we finally got to the point where it zeroed out, where the amount of money that was coming in and the amount of money that we planned going out zeroed out. It was like a cathartic effect. It was like, oh, wow. That meeting took us about 3 hours. Okay. The next month, it took us about 90 minutes. And then by the third month, it took us about 30 minutes. And then at that point, we kind of incorporated into our date night. So we would go out on Friday night, and we would take Linda would have all of our financial stuff, and when we order our dinner, we would have our financial summit meeting for the month and plan the next month, and we could knock it out pretty much before the food came. Nowadays, literally, we can do it in 4 or 5 minutes because we've been doing it for so many months now, hundreds and hundreds of months, that most of the stuff, I could just tell you from memory how much we're going to set aside for gas and how much money we're going to set aside for miscellaneous expenses and those sorts of things. And the only time we really have a discussion is when things are going to be a little bit different. For example, if we're going to be doing lots of road tripping and we're going to spend more money in gas, we actually have to talk about that. Or if we want to buy a new piece of furniture for the house and we want to put extra money into that, we may have a discussion about that. But most of the time, it's just really quick. So difficult, and then it kind of slants downward and it'll get easier over time. Next, money stretches when you're on a budget. It's amazing that when you start managing it, for some reason you get more bang for your dollar. And I think a lot of it is that you start to be aware of deals. So that you kind of know you need to buy new tires. But then all of a sudden, Les Schwab has run a sale on tires. And because you've been saving for the tires all along, you can get them at a discount. Or with your grocery money, you become like hyper aware of the cost of food because you only have so much money to spend, whereas before you just kind of throw it in your cart and put it on your credit card. And finally, you're going to find financial well-being. You're going to get to the point where you're flourishing. You're psychologically healthy as a result of doing this. Any questions about some of the benefits of actually doing this? All right. If you will actually do this, and those of you who are married, you're going to reduce the money fights in your house. You and your spouse are going to have to come up with other things to fight about because this won't be a part of it. Second, it's going to prevent you from being a financial wreck in your daily lives. You're going to stop bouncing checks and you're going to stop embarrassing yourself at restaurants and grocery stores when your credit card doesn't work or your debit card is overdrawn. This one is something that I've seen from my third-party vantage point, is that I've found that in many cases, intergenerationally, a family member will run into financial difficulty, and one of the options of fixing the financial problem is to go to family and ask for help. I'm going to tell you folks that it's a lot easier to go to your dad, even as an adult, and ask for money if you're managing your money wisely to begin with. But if you're managing your funds like a maniac, it's really going to be difficult to get the kind of empathy you're looking for. This helps dramatically. In fact, a lot of times people will come in for help and they'll ask me to advocate for them, either with like the collection agencies or their parents, and I'll say, tell you what, I'll help you if you start doing this for 90 days. But I'm not going to go to your dad, or I'm not going to go to your collection agency and tell them, oh yeah, you're a great guy, or you're wonderful with your money, when you're not. Usually when people actually start doing this, their financial problems just automatically melt away anyway. Now, before you actually sit down and decide to come up with your own budget, it's really important for you to establish your goals ahead of time. You should be planning for a purpose. Some purposes you might be considering is that I want to be able to live off the income from my investments by my 65th birthday. Or I'm saving because I want to help my kids go to an in-state college and I want to pay up to 50%. Or I want to pay off the mortgage to my house by the time I'm 50. There should be a reason for you to be doing all of this work. Have a purpose. So before you even do your cash flow plan, establish what sort of goals you're doing the budgeting for.
Would that pertain to just long-term goals, or should you establish short-term goals too?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. What would be a short-term goal for you?
Get out of financial debt.
Yep. So pay off your credit cards. So that'd be a goal that's worthy of pursuit. But in order to pay off the credit cards, you have to come up with more money than paying the minimum. So if you're normally paying, say, $200 a month, because that's the minimum on your debts, you want to get to the point where you're putting $400 against your debts. So then, when those are paid off, now you have $400 of cash flow that's now freed up because the minimum was $200, you dedicated $400. What are you going to do with the $400 when you get that done? But short-term and long-term, you need to establish those before you get started.
Is one more important than the other, or do they both have like equal importance?
I think the best thing to do for making that decision is go back to that Wealth Builders milestones chart and figure out where you are.
Okay.
So if you're between 1 and 2, then paying off debts is your number one priority.
Okay.
So, but yeah, usually paying off, you don't want to do a whole lot of investing until you have your consumer debts paid off. Otherwise, what you end up finding yourself doing is you get into a financial crisis, you're selling your investments, paying a penalty to get out of them at a loss to pay off the credit cards. Get the credit cards paid off first, then you don't have to worry about breaking into the accounts to take the money. If you're married, work on this plan together with your spouse. It's less than half effective if you're just doing it by yourself or if your spouse is doing it by themselves. Now, a lot of family members who are married, when they're going through this financial process, if they're doing it in isolation, the person who's actually doing the bookkeeping is going, I wonder if I'm making the right decisions. I wonder how much my spouse is actually going to need. I wonder if my spouse thinks I'm doing a good job. So you have all this anxiety stuff going on. But if you actually meet together and discuss these things, now it's perfectly okay if somebody's better at doing the bookkeeping. In my house, I'm the 25,000 foot view guy, and Linda is like, I'm right here on top of it person. She writes the checks, she pays the bills, she does the shopping, all that sort of stuff. But I show up for the meetings. I show up for the meetings and I have input into the conversation about how we're going to spend money next month. Next, don't expect immediate perfection because you're going to mess it up in the beginning. That's okay. You're going to be better next month because now you have another month of experience doing this. Consideration. As I said earlier, establish your goals before you begin the cash flow plan. Work on this plan together with your spouse. And don't, it's exactly the same thing. Skip all that. Okay. Now, when you want to get started, the first thing you want to do, and this is really quite easy for most of us, unfortunately, is determine all your sources of income. Where do we normally get our income?
Your regular job,
Okay. Where else can we get income?
part-time jobs.
Your part-time job, your small business. Maybe you're fortunate, you have a family where your parents gift you money on an annual basis. Maybe you're an Alaskan resident, and so you get oil revenue checks, occasionally.
I guess Social Security.
Social Security, maybe disability checks, maybe alimony. There's all sorts of different things. But figure all that income in. Like I said, for most of us, it's really easy because we usually have like just one or two sources. But occasionally you have folks that have multiple sources.
What do you do when it's like, part-time work where you don't work all the time and you have no idea that it's going to be regular? What do you do when you have something that's...
Well, as we're going to talk is that when we do the actual budgeting that we teach, you do it monthly.
Okay.
So it's based on what your income was that month. Okay. Next, identify all your expenses. This is a little bit more difficult because they're kind of like holes in the canoe. You really don't see them until you see the water start coming in, or you really don't know them until the bills come in. So the first time you sit down and try to figure this out, you're going to forget something. But try to identify all your expenses. Next, and we'll talk a little bit about this, is that have an extra income priority list in your monthly cash flow plan. Now what this is that, what if, just by good fate, you had an extra infusion of cash, what would you do with it? If you got a tax return for, say, $5,000, what would you do with it? Have a plan for what you would do with it before you get the money, so you're not making an emotional response. You're making a thoughtful one. And then implement zero-based budgeting. Zero-based budgeting is that when you're doing your monthly budget plan, don't say, well, man, I got it down to zero, so now I'm going to try to save an extra $200. Well, no. If you have extra money when you finish doing your budgeting thing, plug it back in someplace. Maybe you plug it into making an extra payment against a loan, or you put the money into a savings account or into an investment account, or you're going to put extra money into one of your categories. But the idea is that you want to zero it out so that all the money that came in that month, you have accounted for it going out. You want to make things easy, try to pay as many bills as possible through autopay, starting with your tithe at your church, or automatically paying down your debts, or going into savings. The less bookkeeping you have to do personally, the more apt you are to being successful. So like your water bill, your trash bill, if they'll let you do it, sign up for autopay. And then implement the envelope system. Old school. And we're going to talk quite a bit about this here in a second. Now this is the thing I think is really important, is that you do this every month. So you need to block on your calendar a time during the month where you're going to sit down and do your finances for the next month. So this is September. Today's the 28th, tomorrow's the 29th. Either tomorrow or Sunday, Linda and I are going to get together for a few minutes and we're going to go over how we're going to spend money in October. And then at the end of October, we're going to sit down for a few minutes and we're going to figure out how we're going to spend money for November. And Linda's going to come to the meeting with a budget sheet, and she's already going to have numbers penciled in for what she thinks we need to spend it on, and then we're going to talk about it. And then if I agree, that's going to be our plan for the next month. They don't work very well if you do them annually because things change. Gas prices go up, food prices go up, things go down. You budgeted for your kids to do activities, they quit the team, so there's all these sorts of things that could change. It works better when you adjust on a monthly basis. Okay, and this tool is actually on our website, and I'll show you at the end where you can find it. But here's an example of a monthly budget. And trying to figure out how much you're going to spend. Well, for October of 2017, let's say this family brings in $5,025 a month. Now, this is really important. When you're doing this for the very first time, there is a need for speed. What you don't want to do is, okay, all right, item number one, tithe. How much should we tithe? I think we should do 10%. Oh, I don't think we can afford 10%. Well, no, I think we can. And so you start fighting back and forth, and you spend 20 minutes solving number one, and you still have to come up with all these. So, in the beginning, don't get bogged down by perfection. Just throw something on the thing and move on. It's okay if it's completely wrong. Just get it on the paper and move on to the next line. The reason why? Because you're going to be wrong anyway. You're going to budget too much for gas and too little for groceries, and you're just trying to figure your game out. But rather than get bogged down and take 3.5 hours, move on. In the beginning, for that first draft, try to get the whole thing done in 30 minutes or less. Because you're going to go back and do another draft. If you take more than 2 minutes on any one particular item or category, just wing it. Just put something on paper, kind of Kentucky windage, and move on. You know what Kentucky windage is?
No, and I'm from Kentucky. I'm sort of confused by that expression.
You know on your rifle sights? With rifle sights, you basically can adjust them so that point of aim, point of impact with your rifle. Kentucky windage is where you go, well, I know this rifle kind of shoots to the left, so I'll just compensate by moving it over to the right.
Yeah, that sounds like my sort of hillbillies.
Okay, knowing this, the first time you're going through this thing, and so you and your spouse, you're going through this quickly, so you decide, okay, we're going to just put down 10% for now, we'll move on. Missionary, we're going to throw down 25. And 50, 50, 50. And you're moving. You're just throwing all this stuff down here. You're going, how much do you think it's going to be for electricity? Well, last month it was 46. Okay, let's put 46 down because it was last month. Gas, water, whatever last month's bills are, that's what we're going to throw down here for this time. Groceries. Well, how much do you think we spend on groceries? Well, I don't know. Why don't we say it's going to be $150 per person per month? Transportation. Car payments, you know that because you pay your bill every month for your car loans. And gas and oil, you're winging it. So then you get to the end of the first page, total them all up, comes to $4,478. Going on to page 2, how much money should we set aside for clothing? Well, I like to wear clothes. Clothes are a really important part of my life. Okay, let's throw down $100. And got the bills for medical and health insurance. Put those on there. You're cruising right through here. Got your life insurance, and we want to go out on date nights, so we got to hire a babysitter, school supplies and hair care, and magazine subscriptions, writing them all down there. So on page 2, you add these up, and it comes to $1,553. Get to the third page, recreation, vacation. Well, I want to go on vacation at least every 2 years, so we need to save $6,000 every 2 years to go on vacation. Then you look at your debts and you figure out what those are from your statements and you write them on there. Page 3 total, $753. So you add them all up. Grand total, ooh, ugly. Very, very ugly. Because in our dream sheet, we overspent $2,059, but we only made $5,025. How are we going to solve that problem? I'll show you. Okay, this is the extra income priority list. So what if we had extra money? What would we do with it? Well, we'd pay off the Discover card, or we'd pay off the MasterCard. Go ahead and write those on your plan. So what do you do when your budget expenses exceed your income? Now in your book there, or on your handout, there should be some percentages, budget percentage recommendations. If you are overspending in any category more than 5%, reduce expenses until you hit the midpoint of that budget percentage recommendation. So for example, in the transportation category, take a look here. When you add all these up, this is with a total, but in order to be at the midpoint, we got to get those expenses down to $628. How can you do that?
Well, that sucks since your car payments are already more than that.
Sell a car.
Bingo. Sell a car. Buy a jalopy. Buy a car, buy a jalopy, pay off your, so basically make it work because you've only got so much money. Somebody has to be the adult and tell your money what to do. And if this is what's killing your budget, you got to do something. So back it off until you get to the midpoint and go back and put in your budget again. Personal. In this budget category, they can only afford, if their income is only $5,025, this was the midpoint. This is what they actually spent, so they got to go back and take things out of the budget until we get to this number. Now in the case of food, this is actually within the window, but it's at the high end, okay? So at the high end, we should reduce that till we get to $377 per month in this category. Now, by reducing the expenses to within budget percentage recommendations in the 3 categories we just went through, they took out $1,700 in expenses. But we still have $349 overspending. At this point, this is where you start cutting off arms and legs. And this is where it starts to hurt. So in this case, you could postpone doing the vacation until the budget actually balances out. So you start cutting your personal expenses until your budget balances to 0. This is what's killing this family right here. It's the credit card debts. Once they get rid of these credit card debts, that's like an infusion of $423 of extra cash every month. So that's what this family is shooting for, is getting rid of those consumer debts. Any questions about the process of coming up with your first working budget?
Maybe it's just I'm trying to wrap my head around it. So, what money specifically do you put like in a checking account, and what money specifically do you keep for envelopes?
Okay, that's entirely up to you. Now, you can do a. Let me see if this is a. In your handout, does it show anything with color?
Yes.
Yep. So if you take a look at that, the color code, you decide what you're going to do for writing checks. You're spending money with writing checks, and those things you actually do with your with cash. You decide.
So can I, like, what I might do is have like all my expenses for the envelope system, and then have like all my fund money and then in the checking account.
Usually what Lynn and I did is anything that we have discretion over, for example, you have some discretion over your groceries. You can decide whether you buy the ribeye steaks or the chuck steak. You have a choice on that. So that would be cash.
Okay.
But things like paying your electric bill, your water bill, that kind of comes in a bill form. Usually we'd write a check for that.
Okay.
Going out to dinner, that would be cash because we have some discretion over that. So discretion expenses usually would be paid for with cash.
Okay.
Recreation would be considered a personal discretionary expense. So how many of you get paid once a month? Most of you get paid, yeah. Eric in the back does. You get paid once a month too? Was it a shock when you started working for us, got paid once a month?
Yes.
Is it still a shock?
No.
Yeah. For many people who get used to paid every week or every 2 weeks, going to getting paid once a month is incredibly stressful. But as you'll see here, if you only get paid once a month, managing your money is a lot easier because you only have to do this once for the month instead of every pay period. So this family, you have working spouses. They each get paid twice a month. So the first check comes in on the first of the month, and $875. So they go through this process of tithing 88. That leaves a running balance on the other side of this line of $787. You're going to put $50 away for savings. That leaves $737. And you just work your way down. Now what's happening to this balance here as we go down the budget? Okay? So you keep paying your bills. And what you might do, if these are discretionary bills, you put that money in the cash envelope. But if it's going to be like a water bill or electric bill, either do it by automatic deduction, PAC, or you can write the check and put it in your folder to pay on the date it is due. So go ahead and write it now. Get it out of your account per se, even though it's still there. Have the check already written so you can manage it in your monthly budget.
But at that point, though, that's when people have to realize that just because you wrote the check, the money's still in the bank.
That's right.
You can't take the money out of the bank thinking, oh, well, I'll put it back in next week.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Exactly.
Because that's pretty...
But if you're managing your checkbook tells you that already because the money's out of there. The checkbook says there's no money in there.
My
But
absence.
it's discipline.
Yeah. But it's a different kind of discipline. You have a discipline now. It's just different. And in many cases, for folks, they're living in crisis. So what happens at the end of the month, they get paid. For most folks, they get paid and there's a sense of elation. It's like, kids, get in the car. They're all going out for a movie. And then we're going to have dinner. And then we're all going to go down to Walmart and buy stuff. And then it's like 3 or 4 days before the next payday. And they're like, oh, we have no money. Oh my gosh. And the bills are coming in. And so now you're using your credit card and so forth. I'm trying to alleviate all that tension. So you've spent all the money. It's all gone in that first pay period. So now you got your second paycheck, tithe on it. But look at this. We went ahead and we jumped down because we took care of these expenses already with the first check. With the second check, the lion's share of it's going on the mortgage. Then the homeowner's dues. Furniture repairs, furniture replacement. Now, these things, Ian, these like repairs and maintenance and furniture, do you always pay for those things every month?
Nope.
So what you do is you store those in a savings account, not your checking account, but you have a savings account at the bank where you're putting those funds in the bank to be used in the future. You just don't know when. Okay. So you're continuing. You only got $31 left in there. So, you keep spending the money, and all of a sudden, ran out of money. Then you get your third paycheck, and you just go do the same thing. Just go down your 4 pay period list. That's Linda's slide. And essentially, when you've done all this, that's how you manage your money through the month. Okay? Now, the expenses you might spend in the next year go in the savings account. Comes out of the checking account, goes in the savings. Whitefish Credit Union, and I've heard Wells Fargo does it too, is that they allow you to have sub-accounts. So do you guys do it at Parkside? Do you guys do sub-accounts? So how many can you do it at Parkside?
Well, we have one lady who's doing the cash, the Dave Ramsey thing with her sub-accounts. I think she has 40.
40?
Oh, wow.
Wow.
6 of, I only have 6 of Whitefish.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have a lot.
Yep.
We just know what she wants to do now when she comes.
Good. What this is that you can have an account, and for Linda and I, we do ours at the credit union, and we put our emergency savings is the account. And Linda does it, so she probably could tell you better, but like, let's say it's account number 001. So now the sub-account would be 001A, and then like 001B and 001C. So we have one in there which is like for property taxes. And there's another one in there for auto maintenance. And there's another one in for home repairs. And you have all these different sub-accounts. So every month when we go through this process, those funds which are dedicated to
You mean like the furniture one and stuff like
furniture, right.
that? Okay.
So we have a furniture fund. So let's say we put $100 a month into the furniture fund. That money just goes into a furniture fund sub-account. So it's in account number 001C. And in Linda's little ledger, it says 001C is actually the furniture fund.
So are those subfolders like an electric envelope system?
Yeah,
Basically?
exactly. Now, if your bank doesn't do that, or that's too complicated, and for some people maybe it is, another thing you do is you get yourself a 3-ring binder, and every line item has a page. So you have furniture fund, a piece of paper in your 3-ring binder says furniture fund, and at the beginning of the month you put $90 on there, and then all that money goes into your bank account. But you've accounted for it on paper. So all the money is stored in one account, but when you go and you take a look at your 3-ring notebook, how much money do I have in the furniture fund? Go to the furniture fund page, and voila, it tells you how much money you have in there.
Do you think it's a bad idea to just save this money in cash in your house? To have like an envelope or a folder? Like if your furniture fund was $10.
The two issues is that one is that if you get robbed, all of your money is going to could disappear.
How many times has your house been robbed?
Okay, I'm giving the reasons why. The other thing is that now this isn't the case right now. And not beating up on you, Sarah, but right now the banks aren't paying a whole lot in interest. But when you start doing this for years, and you have your car fund in there, and you got say $20,000 in your car fund, you don't want to have $20,000 of cash in the house. Okay, but in the beginning, it's probably okay to have your $90 for furniture fund in there, and it's probably okay for you to have your other dues and those sorts of things in the envelope. But when it starts to get meaningful, and eventually it will, because your car repair fund, your car replacement fund, your furniture fund, you're not just buying sofas every month. It could get substantial.
Is the amount that you're putting for an income gross or net?
It's the money that you actually have to spend, so it would be net. So whatever actually comes into the household. Now, if you can save for retirement, and if you can pay your insurance through your bank or through your paycheck, that's okay. It's just one less thing you have to account for. It's almost like doing the automatic. Okay. So what are some items in your house that you think would be good for using cash as opposed to a debit card or a checking account or a credit card?
Groceries?
Yep. Groceries are a great one.
Yes.
This is actually the one that Linda and I use. This is our, budget sheet. So what Linda does, and I have these tools on our website. We'll show you if you're interested in doing this. This is a piece of paper. It's a little card. And what you do is you write down all the cash needs you need for the month. So in this case, we're going to need a total of $1,195 in cash. So what Linda does ahead of time is she goes ahead and writes the check at home for $1,195. She has this form filled out. She goes up to the teller, slides this thing to the teller and says, I need 16 $50 bills. I need 18 $20 bills. I need 2 $10 bills. I need 3 $5 bills. Then she gets the denominations and she goes over to one of those little cubbies, and then she puts all the money into one of her budget kits. And then we are set for the month. And then
That's fine if you get paid once a month. Mm-hmm. But like I get paid every other week, he gets paid every other week, so it works out well because we're on each Friday. Mm-hmm. But how do you do that if you get paid that way?
Either you can do this more often, okay. Or B, if you get to the point where you have enough in your emergency savings, invent a system where you get paid once a month. Even though you're getting these extra paychecks, do your financial budgeting or all of your planning as if you got paid once a month. See what I'm getting at? Yep. In the beginning, going through that process weekly, you kind of have to do it to get things figured out, but after a while you're going, this is ridiculous. We can do this once a month. Particularly when you have enough in the cash account, in your emergency savings, to act as a buffer until you can start doing the cash flow once a month.
That could just be like, divide that $11.95 just divided by 4.
That's right.
Instead.
That's right. Yep. Also, if you're going to do the envelope system, and okay, this is where the money comes from. You went to the bank, you wrote a check, they gave you cash. And in this case, let's see, we have household miscellaneous. It looks like it was $60. There was 3 20s. 3 20s go in the housing miscellaneous envelope. Groceries, looks like 8 $50 bills went into the grocery envelope. So you put that in the envelope. And then, in each envelope, you have one of these registers. So in this case, March budget for housing miscellaneous was $60. You write on your thing, when you put the money in the envelope, $60 went in. You spent $9 on batteries at Walmart. And in Linda's case, she never does it. She always rounds things up. She doesn't want to deal with pennies and nickels and dimes, so she just rounds it up. And then in your check register, or in your envelope register, you put $51. Now, if you're single, maybe you don't need to do that. But imagine what it's like when you have 2 people taking money from the same envelope in the house. So Heidi goes diddy-bopping over to the grocery envelope, and in her mind, she's remembering the last time she went to the envelope, and there was $360 in there, and her expectations are there's $360. But when she goes there, she only finds $90. Now, do you think it's going to be all sorts of uplifting thoughts going through Heidi's head? Okay? Well, one of the ways you can alleviate those bad thoughts is you both write down what the money is used for in this thing. So like in our case, if I need to get gas for my truck, I go to the house safe, take out the envelope system, go in there, and I'll take, say, $50, $60, whatever I think it's going to cost for gas, and I write down Joe's truck, $60. Then Linda goes in and she sees where I'm spending the money, and I see where Linda's spending the money. A real easy way you can do this is just write on the outside of the envelope. And then when the envelope gets completely covered, just get a new envelope. Okay. If you want to use these tools, you can go to, if I can go to our website. Ooh. Wow, internet's not working very fast tonight. On our tab, go to our website, go to the Personal Finance for Life tab, and all the tools that we talked about tonight are there. The budget worksheets, the speed, here we go. You go to our website, go to this tab right here, Personal Finance for Life. And you got the basic budget, the speed budget, the budget registers that go inside the envelopes, the envelope cash denomination forms that you take to the bank. And there's a bunch of other tools on there as well that we didn't talk about here tonight. But everything you need to be set up for success is there. No cost. Took away all your excuses for not doing this. But if you do this, I think you're going to reduce your anxiety and increase your opportunity for actually reaching your financial goals.